As Americans feel the shock of higher gas prices at the pump, there's another energy crisis brewing across the country, but the people who actually run the electrical grid issuing stark warnings. For 100 years, America's electrical system, mostly stable, with blackouts being the rare exception. But when they do happen, they can have exceptional consequences.
The situation here in Brownsville was described as anarchy, war, rioting.
Every source of power that the state of Texas has been compromised.
Now a new combination of the latest artificial intelligence data centers and aging power plants is creating a perfect storm, from the big city to the Great Plains.
It's becoming more of a challenge across the whole eastern part of the United States.
Rich Dewey oversees NYSO, which runs the grid in New York.
Rich, you say the grid is at an inflection point. What does that mean?
Really, it's a confluence of a number of different factors. So we're on the cusp of really new technologies coming onto the grid, and it's really got us concerned about our ability to meet reliability for not only for New York City, but for the state as a whole.
Dewey says on a peak day, the demand is 32 to 33,000 megawatts. Now they have proposals for 13,000 more megawatts in demand for AI alone, a nearly 50% increase.
At a time of significant load growth, we're actually retiring more generation that we're building, and that gives us some concerns.
New York is connected to about half of the country through the Eastern Interconnection, and Dewey says everyone is talking about the problem.
What we're seeing is the story in New York is a very similar story across all the other regions.
Another grid operator called PJM handles power in 13 states and D.C. They say they've got the same problems. They're letting new data centers connect only if they bring their own power plants online too, or they have to agree to power down when the grid gets stressed. It's becoming a political hot topic, with protests against new data centers at town halls across the country. Starting to hit Americans' wallet, too, with average electricity prices across the country up about 5% in the last year, and more than 35% in the last 5 years. Florida's governor says he's for some new regulations on their construction and impact on the grid. And in California, some projections indicate a doubling of the state's demand in the next 10 years. For the companies that actually have to deliver the power, it's all they're talking about, too.
We know across the country we need to generate more power and we need to invest in infrastructure to move it, and that's what we're all focused on.
Sally Librera runs National Grid New York.
We are investing in the grid throughout the state. Upstate, we are making the largest investment that's ever been made in the grid. We're rebuilding 1,000 miles of transmission. We are investing heavily in substations. And the reason that we're doing that is because we want to grow the grid.
That includes the natural gas to fuel the plants, now the biggest fuel source for electricity across the country, surpassing coal about a decade ago. And despite the global conflict, natural gas prices have remained relatively low this year, for now.
There's a lot of interest in nuclear technology and in doing nuclear technology differently than it's been done in the past.
It's part of why the infamous 3 Mile Island nuclear plant is set to get back up and running in Pennsylvania. We visited recently as they were ready to flip the switch.
When we restart the plant, it'll look just like this.
The more that people are thinking about energy, then we have more people at the table thinking about solutions, and that's a very exciting place to be.
An exciting problem to solve as long as the lights stay on.
And Tom Winter is joining us now. And I think you kind of summed up my kind of follow-up question quite well, which is, okay, great. So there's some solutions out there, right? Nuclear technology, for instance, being one of them. But you also mentioned that these rolling blackouts could happen as soon as next summer, right? So how do we get there faster? Is there anything folks can do, some patchwork solutions so that we're not dealing with these rolling blackouts?
Yeah, well, when you talk to Dewey and Librera, I mean, first, there's things that need to be done immediately for the near term and then also done immediately for the long term. So on the near term side of things, you know, one of the things that NYSO is trying to do is, you know, figure out, are there ways that we can communicate with customers, whether they be data centers or be you and me here in New York State, that we can kind of cut back a little bit on that demand, save some of the energy. They're also talking about the idea of storing some of the energy. At 2 a.m., we don't consume as much power as we do at maybe 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 6 p.m. on a hot day, but those power plants can run there. There are ways to store that energy that could be potentially helpful. Long term, of course, the challenge here is that, you know, in 3 to 5 years, it will take to ramp up the types of power plants that you'll need to be able to deliver this power.
So are you telling me I should listen to my husband and turn the lights off when we leave the house and not crank the AC all the way down to 65 degrees or the heat up to to 80?
I think that's something that NISO and every other operator would very much like you to do. Yes, on those days for sure.
Okay, got it. Tom Winter, thank you. Appreciate it.